everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at Postscript, an unversed comics anthology. From what I picked up reading the inside of this is the third and final of the unversed anthology series. These are edited by Jonathan Hill and printed by PNCA, which I think is the Portland Narrative Comic Art, something like that. It's a school in Portland for illustrators and artists. So these are all people that, as far as I can tell, have been to that school or are friends of people that went to that school, and I think the majority of them are people that have worked with Jonathan Hill as an instructor, and these are his students. That is what I took away from kind of reading the introduction here. I don't remember where I picked this up from. I know it was at MoCA, but I don't remember at what table it was from. So I don't know if this came with anything else, any of the artists I ran into or associated to any of their companies. I kind of went into a not drug-induced, but just greed-induced, book lust-induced buying frenzy at MoCA. And so I don't remember where I got this from. But it is a really astonishing collection of work by what I'm assuming are young artists. And it was really the only disappointment I had in this book was that there were a significant number of these artists that I tried to follow up on, like trying to find their Instagram, and they just don't have Instagrams, or their names were like, too bland. So I had a real hard time. They do have a list of like everyone's website in the book, but I just don't have the time to like keep a list of websites that I'm keeping up on. Whereas Instagram, I can like follow somebody, and then when they have a new book coming out, it will show up in my feed, and then I can pay attention to it. So I was very disappointed that this book is full of cartoonists like this right away. I think someone's doing some really interesting work, really visually compelling work, and I don't really know how to follow up on it. But anyways, this is a big anthology with a lot of work, so I just wanted to flip through and show, everyone's stuff and give a shout out and maybe a little explanation of the story, maybe not, but try and put these artists out there because there's a lot of compelling work. And I'm gonna have to look more into this school as well, because if all of their students are coming out this good, they really got a hell of a program. So this first one is about a girl plucking her eyelashes, and this is by Abbey St. John. I picked up throughout, there's, I think, a theme in this book of like loss. I think also because this was going into it, they seemed to know that this was going to be their final one. So I think that drove the theme. I'm really curious to get the first two and follow on those artists and see if there's a theme and stuff. But I think this is like loss, letting go. That was kind of the theme of the majority of the stories. Really enjoy, there's this two-tone all the way throughout, so two spot colors, the black and this kind of greenish color here, and doing a lot of the things that I'm just starting to play around with now, like scanning in textures and stuff and putting them in, or using digital texture tools, I'm not sure, but getting textures and stuff in there with this real simplified cartooning. I just think it's really nice stuff, like this stuff right up front by Abbey St. John is exactly the kind of thing that I'm enjoying looking at right now visually. So bit bummed that I couldn't follow up on that. This is by Cas Marotta, and it's more of a Last Day on Earth story. And again, you can see some really interesting, compelling visuals in here, really interesting compositions and use of comics and line, all of that stuff. So really great. This is an amusement park that's closing down. This story by Kathryn Herndon. So these kids are sneaking in and having one last good ride before the park closes. And again, real good use of these spot colors. This artist is just absolutely phenomenal, Lucy Brown. You can see the cartooning here is top notch. And again, some like scanning in of these textures, these dry brush textures, or a stamp of wood or something, which again is things that I'm just in love with right now. I've been doing a lot of that and playing with that digitally. So seeing people who are getting those similar effects, it's like, like seeing how other people use it is so informative. So Lucy Brown's amazing. The other thing is a lot of these people, that when I did find them, they're not really comic artists. They're illustrators who are prone to do one-off illustrations. And we're probably just doing this as an assignment or because of the project itself, their teacher offered them the chance, but they don't seem really committed to like being comic artists. They like comics, but they're illustrators. And so I think Lucy Brown was one of those where, this is someone who's great. I'll follow their work, but it doesn't look like they're ever going to produce books. So that's a bit of a bummer. This is Xan Collins here. This one was really well written as well. You have these characters that kind of know each other or are in love with each other because of playing a video game, but they've never met in real life, and the impact of that when they meet in real life. It's just really well written. Megan Wood, there's a story about a girl doing an essay about Sappho. Again, really sophisticated compositions throughout. A really nice, like, more brushy work. There's a real variety too. Like, you see that there is a constraint put on them. You got to work with black and green spot colors, but this isn't a school where people are learning like a stock style. There's a real variety of approaches throughout here, even with the way that the people use the second color. Some people a real textural approach, some people like the computer colored approach. It's really interesting to see. So that's why I'm saying this looks like a really good program, this Pacific Northwest College of the Arts, PNCA. I think that's what it was. Sorry, not the Narrative College, but I think it's the Pacific Northwest College of the Arts. So PNCA seems like they have a really, really good program. Here's a strange one where someone's trapped in a contract that they have to marry someone, anyone, get into the marriage society, or they'll become a monster. This is by Rosalyn Lageson-Spaugh, and again, really good cartooning in all of these. Kei Flores, this is a story about dreaming about Jurassic Park, I think. I forget. I've been reading this off and on, so I don't remember all of these. Here's a piece by Katie York, another where I really liked the kind of use of the two tones and the style in general. I really like the idea here as well. I did what I wanted. I combined the unthinkable. I put so much evil and so much light, so much unchecked power into one person. So I guess they're just a person. Guess I'll start again. And I like that. This scientist trying to create, this extra super powerful person that's super evil and super good. And then what they came out with was just a human, someone who's like all the way on both. Well, that was a good piece of writing. So Katie York, good artist, smart writer. Zoe Bell, this is someone who's basically having a trip because they've been deprived of oxygen. Again, killer art. I cannot imagine having a class full of students that every one of them is going to turn in this kind of work. What a job. This is Loss of an Important Landmark, basically. This is by Delta Vasquez. And again, like, just right out the gate, killing it with the brushwork here, especially on the backgrounds. Vance Lump, this is about a lighthouse. This is another one of those artists I really wish I could follow up on, and someone who I don't think is doing much comics, but this opening page is just absolutely phenomenal. It reminds me of John McNaught a lot, the guy for No Brow. This is about a lighthouse, and all throughout, just, killing it on the art. And then this 2-page spread here with these kind of John McNaught like little panels. This is like the top quality stuff. And a lot of them apparently aren't doing comics, which just leaves me so sad. I'm going to keep complaining about that. Eva Landis. This one was strange. I think it's about a girl who wants to have sex with the seal. Whatever. But the cool stuff here with like all these tones overlapping, like these dot tones, and then the black with the white dots, and then some white dots over that, with all the kind of dry brush, brushy stuff. I just think is really inventive. Actually reminds me a little bit of what Eddie Campbell used to do with tones in Bacchus. I think that's the only other place I've seen something like this. So Eva Landis is doing really, really cool stuff with tones, digital tones. Elise McCall, this is about, I don't remember what this was about, but I like this little piece here. Oh no, I do remember what it was about. This is a story about someone growing up, they're saying, I used to hate vegetables, especially the green ones, but today I'm a vegetarian whose favorite color is green. So this wasn't about loss so much as just like growing up, coming to let go an old part of your personality. And the art in this one, I wasn't as exciting to me, but I did really think that actually, that's a really nice piece there. But I did think that like little message is, really well written message in that book. Unah Denight-Leonard. This one, I didn't get a sense of what exactly the story was. It seemed like a chunk from some bigger world that this artist is building, but a really nice combo of like pencil work instead of ink work, and then that second tone. Again, another unique look, another unique approach to the constraints. This artist I loved, Mo Harrison. Weird stuff. It reminds me a lot of what Tradd Moore's doing on the new Doctor Strange, Fall Sunrise or whatever that book's called. Really strange combo. The Benjamin Skipper book that I looked at, the Joe Death, where there's kind of like a magnolia thing mixed with some weird old cartooning. Just really dig the look of this. And again, this is an artist that when I went to find them, unfortunately didn't seem like there was much going on at all. And when you've got such a unique vision like that, it's too bad, because I found that story really compelling. Hopefully a bunch of these I don't know, if you know one of these artists, tell them to get on Instagram and keep going, because they're really great stuff. This piece here by Carlos Bergfeld was interesting. The kind of message of it, there's these people that are on this journey where they're kind of searching and they're looking for a place where there's, stuff for all. And when they finally find the place for all, you get the sense that they're not over yet, that there never is an end to for all. That like as soon as your mission is to make everything completely equal, there's no end to that, because there's no end to stuff that can be equalized within the universe. I don't think this story is like so critical of that. I think it's leaning into this like, equality for all kind of message. But when you see this character beat up getting there at last, it seems so hopeful. And I just feel bad for this person, because they're walking into, like this they're walking into a city, they're walking into a system and a structure. So I don't know, this one I think was one of the more complicated stories for me to appreciate. Grayson Bear. I met Grayson at MoCA. Maybe this is where I got it. Grayson probably had this with some of his own work. This one is about like kind of someone's dreams versus their like need to be accepted. Really like the cartooning in this. I especially like this here where this dog they crash land on this island. And this character's like, hey, I'm an experimental coconut player. Would you like to experience my work? Sure. And then they bang on the coconuts. And this face where he says, wow, I didn't enjoy that at all. This is really less than ideal. Like, that's just a perfect expression right there. So, again, amazing stuff. Travis Geoghegan. This is someone who's running from time. Some really early kind of almost futurist art influences in some of this, like technology and speed and motion. Nyssa Oru. This is someone who's spending a lot of time, obviously, in a VR headset here. Alyssa van Hulle. This is someone who lost their dog, and their little ghost dog is following them around. Pretty cute and sweet. Really like this here where the dog jumps through and kind of makes her heart skip a beat. Julia Hutchinson. This one is someone who is, taking care of a pigeon. I like this here. When we found the pigeon, it was cold and dark. He was alone, probably afraid, and we took him to a warm, safe place. He died in peace without pain. The act of reducing suffering or of working to improve the world in a small way is not a useless thing. Sometimes it's the best you can do. So again, I think a lot of these are obviously by young people, and the amount of wisdom I'm seeing in a lot of these short little stories is making me very, very hopeful for the future. Here's one by Ashley Bender. This is a guy who's makes friends with a vampire. Maggie Burant. This is a very real, very real thing. Trying to stay healthy while you're constantly having injuries. This is, and then she's saying like, I go through it and I start to get healthy and then I get injured again and I rehab, and it's just like, I know I'll get back to it. And that's too real, almost painfully real for me, trying to get back into shape with injury after injury. This story by Clive Hawken is about someone who's living with parents who are very, very argumentative and confrontational, so they're kind of using their imagination to check out of reality and, like kind of imagine what their family could have been, go back in time a little bit. Colin Laurel, someone else who I think just really, really killed it with the two tones, using like some really nice dry brush effects, putting things together, compiling things, it looks like digitally probably, really making the best of the brushwork and using that second tone to do some drawing as well, like on the bird and on the face here. So these are the people that excited me the most, of these people who are really, really showing how to use the spot colors to their greatest advantage. Seven Martinez Bloom, love this one as well, like just the pile up of texture that is done in the black, like the range of grays and texture that's done with the black. When the green gets put over it, it looks like there's a lot more color going on than there is, like especially in this panel here. So you have like this kind of underwater temple looking city thing there that's very, very cool. This artist, not particularly great when they're just doing the figurative work, but when they're leaning into this kind of textural stuff, I think are really killing it. Even on the figures, get a lot better with the texture there. It's Andy Kravitz. Really like this Doctor Strange, like push you in into the other universe kind of magic thing here. Conor MacBride. This is like a masculine kid fantasy. This is someone who's like in this big, like crazy heavy metal guitar robot. And I think in the end, they really just want to be feminine, but they're kind of going through trying to smash up this like masculine training they have. I think that's what this story is about. It's a little abstract, but again, really powerful imagery in here, really impactful stuff. Skylar Kardon. Some strange sci-fi. Steve Stasiuk? Not sure. This one unsettled me a little bit. It's a woman who's like trying to replace her dead husband with the werewolf, and they're having lots of weird, freaky, furry, anthropomorph sex. Cool. Have fun with that. Maria France, this is another artist I just absolutely fell in love with this book. I think Maria I was actually able to find on Instagram. But this page here, again, the use of these two colors, all of this texture work and kind of dry brush work, along with what looks like that's all just dry brush. There's no wash in there. And then the like really clean, snappy design aspects. There's, just some really, really nice cartooning all the way throughout. Just great stuff. I think if I remember correct from a couple days ago when I was looking at this was somebody who was actually still doing some comic work on Instagram. This is by Anke Gladnick, kind of talking about lost youth. This reminded me quite a bit of Jillian Tamaki and This One Summer, whatever that book's called. Like these kids just going back to the beach, and they're enjoying one last kind of romp at the beach before they grow up. And this page especially, I think, is just a phenomenal page. I imagine that when Anke Gladnick made this, like, this page was the one that was like, oh my god, I did so good. But again, also these kind of like stamped in dry brush textures or something. Maybe they're digital, but these more textural approaches in the greens. Alex Yip, this is kind of a more manga approach. I think like one of the less interesting styles, but really well done in the book. Just one of the more kind of standard on the track styles that I saw in the book. This is just about a friend who moves, what it's like to lose a friend who moves. And then Miel Vandepitte, whose book Centralia should be coming out. By the time this video goes up, it should be out. It was really cool to see like early Miel. I'm not sure. I'll have to ask Sean or ask Miel if Miel studied in Portland, because I know Miel is in Belgium. So I don't know if he came over or how Miel's connected to this group. And then also it looks like additional art for the book. So Miel did some of the additional art in the book, some of the illustrations or something. I'm not sure, but Miel got credited on the inside front cover. So it's really cool to see like earlier Miel work. Like I can tell this is earlier stuff because what's going on with the buildings and whatnot is nowhere near as sophisticated as what he's doing in Centralia. And knowing that he did Centralia when he was like 19, that shows a significant, really rapid improvement happening. And given how good Centralia is, it's a little bit scary to think what Miel's next book will be. So very, very cool to see that. You can see his real sense of fantasy in here, as and his sense of humor. I think a lot of the other artists are trying to be more serious, and this very much feels like the fantastical sci-fi kind of stream of imagination, fun sense of humor that you get in Centralia as well. This is Tandy Kunkle. People talking about basically having a kid. Do they want to have a kid or not? Intense stuff. Sarah Hickey. This is a story about driving a selkie out to the sea so it can like turn back into the seal. It's interesting. A lot of these very like down to earth things. This is that Monster Life stuff, right? Very down to earth. People on the road, like kind of mixing what looks like an autobio comic or something with fantasy. And then you have the selkie elements. Marlowe Dobbe, again, love the art style on this. And then also this is about someone playing the old Game Boy Zelda game, the one with the egg on the mountain. This is the one I played. This is my favorite video game of all time, because all I ever had was a Game Boy, and this was my favorite game on the Game Boy. So that just combined with the art, just had to love this one. And I'm looking at it thinking like, oh, do I know this map, So love that. Love the Game Boy Zelda. Great art. Unfortunately, I think that was also someone I couldn't follow up on. Jonathan Hill, Living Dead Forever. Actually, Jonathan... So this is their instructor then. Their instructor doing this piece here. This is about people who are basically ghosts, and it's like, oh God, how terrible would it be to actually live forever? 100 years later, they're like, oh, we'll never have to say goodbye. And then 100 years later, it's like, God, if I could just get out of here. And then, there's an alternate cover gallery, so you get to see a whole bunch of like other people in the book, like Lucy Brown, doing their covers. The one that I put in that I really particularly liked was this one by Abbey St. John. I also like that Abbey St. John like went the reverse of the color. It's like, well, I'm not bound by the colors on the inside, so I'm gonna go with like pinks and reds versus your blacks and greens, where it looks like everyone else kind of stuck with the palette on the inside. So I quite like that. Yeah, I really love this book. I was so just overwhelmed and excited by how many talented young artists were in here. And you see in the back here, they give their their little info on each one, and they do have some of them, like Miel and a couple other, have their Instagrams listed, but most people have their website listed. It was surprising to me that that's still a thing, where people are listing websites or even maintaining websites. That just seems in the day of social media kind of outdated. Here it says Jonathan Hill is an Ignatz nominated cartoonist published by First Second. He teaches comics at the Pacific Northwest College of the Arts and serves on the board of directors at Literary Arts and has been the editor of the Unversed anthologies. He loves them, but is happy to never do one ever again. So he's obviously burnt a lot of energy wrangling all these young kids and getting them to make a book this thick, especially given how many of them haven't done anything else since, as far as I can tell. I could see why that was probably an exhausting thing for him. And I hope he's proud of it, though. I hope he's proud that the school that he works at is producing phenomenal students, and this book is a phenomenal anthology. I would imagine that there's also a bit of sorrow, like a teacher who's invested all that time and got such good results, seeing people not necessarily follow up on that. Or maybe they're just following up on it in a way that I'm not privy to. I'd be interested, people a couple times have mentioned in in the comments, like, Instagram's not the only way to find and follow artists. I would like to know how else people are doing it, like, efficiently. Like I said, I can do this and I could go out to all their websites, but there's no way that I have the time or the interest in going to all these websites and like checking in on them regularly and seeing what these people are doing. So besides Instagram, what other methods are you all using to keep track of artists efficiently to see when they have a new project coming out, especially when you have, this many artists here, and you're interested in a significant number of them? It's just like, there has to be a way to do this. So other than Instagram, I'm very curious to hear what people on the channel do to stay up on books. So I don't also know like how you would get a copy of this. I apologize. Just look it up online, I guess. But like I said, I forget who I got this from. I think since Grayson Bear was in it, and I did get some stuff from Grayson, that this is probably something that Grayson had at his table based on the fact that he probably got comp copies from being in the project. So I think that's where I got it from. But I would imagine a quick online search, you should be able to get this. It's really cool and really well worth it if you can handle the letdown of like, oh my god, a lot of these people may never make anything again. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel and want to support us, there's two ways to do that. The first is through our Patreon. We have 2 different tiers of engagement there. In the first tier, you just get early access to all of our videos. At the second tier, you get exclusive access to early previews of work that Sean and I are doing, as well as the ability to participate in our ongoing webcomic experiment, Pranede, where you can vote to help determine the outcome of that story. We really appreciate that support. Any of the money we make from Patreon just goes back into helping buy the books that we review, so we try and turn that back into the community, and it just keeps us in books to share with you, so you can consider what your next purchase is going to be. And then if you want to support Living the Line itself, the best thing to do is to support what Sean's doing with Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of his projects now. Centralia is an awesome, gorgeous comic by rising Dutch star Miel Vandepitte. This is his first work. It's a really great sci-fi story. There's a world in the future where the sun has gotten so hot that people can't be on the ground. So they have to run around. There's a lot of conceits that go with that. What is the world that looks like? And I think you can see by the art that Sean's description of this book as like a Moebius for young adults, a YA Moebius, is a really great description of this really gorgeous and like wild, wacky, fun book. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.